How often have you confused your and your? It's a common mistake, but one that can easily be avoided. In the world of English grammar, your and your are often confused, primarily because they sound identical in conversation. But in writing, these two words have distinct meanings and uses. Let's dive in and clear up the confusion. Your is a possessive pronoun. It shows ownership or possession. When you want to indicate that something belongs to you, your is the word to use. For example, I really like your new car. Here, your is used to show that the new car belongs to you. Now, let's talk about your. Your is a contraction of you are. It's used to describe a state of being or a characteristic. For instance, you're really good at playing the guitar. Here, your is used to convey the message that you are good at playing the guitar. So how do we differentiate between the two? Well, if you can replace the word with you are and the sentence still makes sense, then your is the correct choice. If not, your is the way to go. Let's test this out with a couple of sentences. If we take the sentence, you're going to love this movie, and replace your with you are, it becomes you are going to love this movie. The sentence still makes sense, which means that your should have been used instead of your. On the other hand, if we take the sentence, I love your dress, and replace your with you are, it becomes I love your dress. It doesn't make sense, which means your is the correct choice. It can be tricky, but with a bit of practice, you'll get the hang of it. English, like any language, has its quirks, but understanding these can make your writing more precise and your message clearer. Remember, your belongs to you. Your means you are. Stick to this rule, and you'll never mix up your and your again. Another pair of words that seem to trip people up is it's and its. These two words may look almost identical, but they have completely different uses. Let's dive in and clear up the confusion. First up, it's. This is a contraction, a shorter form of it is or it has. The apostrophe in its is a hint that we have squeezed two words into one. For instance, in the sentence, it's raining, the its stands for it is. Similarly, it's been a long day is a compressed way of saying it has been a long day. Now let's talk about its. This little word is a possessive pronoun, showing that something belongs to it, whatever it might be. There's no apostrophe here because we're not combining it with is or has. Instead, we're using its to show ownership. For example, the dog wagged its tail. The tail belongs to the dog, hence we use its. But here's where it gets tricky, because usually we use an apostrophe to show possession, like John's book or the cat's whiskers. But in the case of its, there's no apostrophe. It's one of those exceptions that English is so fond of. Let's look at some common mistakes. The chair has lost its leg. Now this sentence might look okay at first glance, but remember that it is short for it is or it has. So the sentence actually reads, the chair has lost its leg. Doesn't make sense, right? The correct sentence should be, the chair has lost its leg. Here, its is showing that the leg belongs to the chair. In conclusion, its is a contraction of it is or it has, while its is a possessive pronoun. The apostrophe in its is a clue that it's a contraction, not a possessive. So remember, if you can replace its with it is or it has in your sentence, then you're on the right track. If not, its is the word you're looking for. So its is short for it is or it has, while its shows possession. And that's the difference between its and its in a nutshell. Let's dive into the world of homophones with there, and there. Homophones can be tricky, especially when they sound the same but have entirely different meanings. There, and there are classic examples of this. They may sound identical when spoken, but each has a unique role in the English language. First, let's start with there. There is primarily used to denote a place or position. For instance, if I say, the cat is over there, I am referring to a specific location where the cat is situated. But remember, there can also be used in other ways, such as in the expression there is or there are, to indicate the existence of something. Next up is there. There is a possessive pronoun. It is used to show that something belongs to them. So if we say this is their house, we mean that the house belongs to them. Lastly, we have their. There is a contraction of the words they are. So when you say they're going to the park, what you're really saying is they are going to the park. Now let's look at a few examples where these words are used incorrectly and then correct them. If someone writes, they're going to the park, that's incorrect because there is possessive and not a contraction of they are. The correct sentence should be, they're going to the park. Another common mistake is writing, the cat is over there, where the first there is misused. The correct version is, the cat is over there, where there indicates possession and there signifies a place. One more example is, their house is over there, which is incorrect because there is a contraction of they are and not a possessive pronoun. The correct sentence is, their house is over there. So remember, there is a place, there shows possession, and there means they are. By understanding and practicing the correct usage of these homophones, you'll enhance your language skills and avoid common grammar mistakes. Let's tackle another pair of commonly confused words, affect and effect. Now, these two words are notorious for their misuse, and often they are used interchangeably when they really shouldn't be. Let's understand why. Affect is primarily a verb, and it means to influence or have an impact on something. Think of it as the action in the sentence. For instance, if we say, the weather can greatly affect your mood, here affect is used correctly because the weather is influencing or having an impact on your mood. On the other hand, effect is primarily a noun that refers to a result or outcome of a certain action or situation. It's the end product of an affect. For example, the effect of the sunny weather was a cheerful mood all around. Here, the effect or result of the sunny weather is a cheerful mood. Let's look at a couple of sentences that use these words incorrectly. The effect of the sunny weather was a cheerful mood all around. This sentence isn't right because affect is an action, not a result. The correct word to use here is effect. Another example is the weather can greatly affect your mood. In this case, effect is used incorrectly because it's not an action, it's a result. The correct word to use here is affect. To remember the difference, think of the first letter of each word. A in affect stands for action, it's something happening. E in effect stands for end result. It's the outcome of an action. So next time you're writing or speaking, remember to affect an effect. You perform the action of affecting, and the result of this action is an effect. And remember, while there are exceptions to these rules, as effect can sometimes be used as a verb meaning to bring about, and affect can be used as a noun in psychology to describe an emotion, these are less common uses. So, affect is an action, and effect is the result of that action. Keep this in mind, and you'll seldom go wrong. When should you use fewer, and when should you use less? Let's find out. In the vast ocean of English grammar, the difference between fewer and less is one of the most subtle yet vital ones to grasp. It's a common mistake to use these two interchangeably, but they do fulfill different roles in our language. Let's start with fewer. This word is used when you're referring to countable items. Imagine that you're at a supermarket. You're standing in front of the express checkout lane and the sign reads 10 items or fewer. This is because you can count the number of items in your cart. Hence, fewer is the correct word to use. Now, let's move on to less. We use less when we're talking about uncountable items. Think of things that you can't divide into separate parts like love, time, or music. For instance, if you're trying to reduce your screen time, you might say, I want to spend less time on my phone. Here, time is not something you can count, so less is the appropriate choice. However, it's not always this straightforward. For example, you might hear someone say, I have less friends than I used to. This is incorrect because friends are countable. The correct sentence should be, I have fewer friends than I used to. Similarly, I have less money than I used to is correct because money, though it seems countable, is considered as an uncountable noun in English. Money refers to an amount, not individual units. Therefore, less is the correct term to use. Remember, English is a quirky language full of exceptions and odd rules. It's completely normal to make mistakes, and that's how we learn. So next time you're in doubt, ask yourself, can I count it? If the answer is yes, go with fewer. If you can't count it, less is your word. Remember, if you can count it, use fewer. If you can't, use less. The last pair of words we're going to look at today are lay and lie. These two words are often swapped and misused, leading to confusion. The most significant difference between lay and lie comes down to whether there's a direct object involved. First, let's talk about lay. The verb lay requires a direct object. This means something or someone must be receiving the action. For example, you might say, I laid the book on the table. Here, the book is the direct object receiving the action. When lay is used incorrectly, it's often because it's being used without a direct object. Saying, I'm going to lay down for a nap is a common error. There's no object being laid down in this sentence, so lay isn't the right word to use. Now, let's switch gears to lie. Lie doesn't need a direct object. This verb is something you do by yourself. If you're feeling tired and you decide to rest, you would say, I'm going to lie down for a nap. Similarly, you might tell your dog, lie down, because the dog is completing the action on its own. A common mistake with lie is using it when there's a direct object involved. Saying, lie the book on the table is incorrect because the book, a direct object, is receiving the action. In past tense, it gets a little tricky. The past tense of lay is laid, and the past tense of lie is lay. Don't let this confuse you. Just remember the main difference. Lay requires a direct object, and lie does not. So, to sum up, you lay something down, like a book or a blanket. But when there's no object being acted upon, you lie down. You lay a pencil on the desk, but after a long day, you might lie down for a nap. So you lay something down, but you lie down by yourself. Now that we've covered these common mistakes, let's quickly review what we've learned. To kick things off, we dove into the often muddled waters of your versus your. Remember, your is possessive. It's all about ownership. Something belongs to you. On the other hand, your is a contraction of you are. So whenever you're tempted to use one or the other, just remember, if you can replace it with you are, then your is your guy. Next, we tackled the tricky duo of its versus its. Its is another contraction, this time of it is or it has. Its, however, is the possessive form of it. So if you're talking about something that belongs to it, whatever it may be, then its is the way to go. We then moved on to the trifecta of there, and there. There refers to a place, there is all about possession again, and there is a contraction of they are. Keep these straight by remembering the apostrophe in there signifies the missing A from are. The fourth common mistake we covered was affect versus effect. Affect is typically a verb meaning to influence something, whereas effect is generally a noun meaning the result of a change. Think of the A in affect for action. It's doing something. The E in effect can help you remember it's the end result. Our fifth point of discussion was fewer versus less. Fewer is used for items you can count, while less is used for singular mass nouns or for things that aren't countable. So if you can count it, use fewer. If you can't, go with less. Finally, we examined lay versus lie. Lay requires a direct object. You lay something down. Lie does not require a direct object. You just lie down. A helpful tip to remember this is by thinking of the phrase, lay it on me. You're asking someone to give you something, which is the direct object. Well, there we have it. A quick recap of some of the most common grammatical mistakes we often make in English. Every language has its complexities, and English is no exception. But armed with these tips, you're a step closer to mastering these tricky pairs. Remember, practice makes perfect. Keep these rules in mind, and you'll avoid these common mistakes in no time.